Do not live in a flood zone. I know that's a bold statement, but if you're even thinking about it, you need to hear this first. Flood zones come with risks, headaches, and surprises that most people don't see coming until it's too late. Stick with me, because by the end of this video, you will know exactly what to look for, how to stay safe, and whether the lifestyle trade-offs are really worth it. Flooding isn't just some abstract risk. It's the single most common natural disaster in the United States. 90% of natural disasters involve flooding in some way. Here in coastal North Carolina, we have hurricanes, storm surge, tidal flooding, and even just heavy rainstorms that can put you underwater. Just imagine, you've unpacked in your dream coastal home. The view is absolutely gorgeous. Then the first summer thunderstorm rolls in. Before you know it, you've got water creeping in across your driveway. Suddenly that dream starts to feel a little different. Let's talk about the lifestyle trade-off. Let's be fair, people do choose to live in flood zones. They choose it for the view, for the boating, for the peace of just living on the water. But here's what they don't always talk about. It can be stressful. Every time a storm is in the forecast, you're thinking about the what ifs. There's also maintenance. You have to do more pressure washing, mold prevention, and special landscaping. There's also rising insurance costs that go into effect year after year. So the question is, are you prepared for those trade-offs? Construction matters more than you think. If you're even considering a home in a flood zone, the first thing you look at is the elevation and the build quality. Is the house on pilings or on a slab? A raised home can be the difference between minor cleanup and a total loss. Are there breakaway walls? These are designed to let go during flooding instead of taking the whole house down. How about the materials? Do you have closed cell spray foam, composite decking, and flood vents? I had a client look at two homes side by side on the Intercoastal Waterway. One was raised on pilings with vents, and the other was built low. It had a crawl space, HVAC sitting on the ground. The same storm hit both properties the following year. One family lost a couple kayaks, had a little bit of issues. The other one lost their entire downstairs. That's how much construction matters and current codes, because some of the older codes in decades past may have allowed for lower elevation whenever building homes. So that's something you definitely want to look at whenever you decide to buy. Drainage and location specifics. It's not whether you're in a flood zone, it's the micro location. How does the neighborhood drain after a storm? Are you in a cul-de-sac where water collects? Is there a marshland nearby that overflows at high tide? Is there recent construction or maybe a highway that's gone into place and now it's moving water in a way that was never imagined before that highway or that construction took place? I've walked lots where the lot looked perfect until you noticed the neighbor's yard has standing water days after rain. That is a red flag that you need to think about. Let's talk about the flood insurance reality. Flood insurance is often the piece that makes or breaks a deal. FEMA's National Flood Insurance Program sets baseline coverage, but it's limited. Private insurance can sometimes offer better coverage, but of course at a higher price. Rates are based on the risk rating, meaning your premium isn't just about the zone, but also the individual risk of the property, the elevation, the distance to water, and any prior claims. Numbers really matter here. I've seen quotes as low as $600 a year for an elevated home and over $6,000 a year for a low-lying one just a few streets closer to the water. So you definitely want to run those numbers before you decide on a home. That larger payment is a mortgage all in itself. Flood history and seller disclosures. This is the stuff buyers forget to ask. Has the property ever flooded? How many claims have been filed on it? Did the owner self-repair the damage without reporting it? Here's a pro tip. Even if a seller swears that they've never had water inside of the house, check around. Look in the crawl space, the garage, the yard. Look for high water marks. Look for where water has moved. Look where water drains. Look at where grass will not grow. It's all important to take into consideration before you buy that property. Emergency access. Something most people don't realize until it happens is even if your home doesn't flood, your roads might. You might be stuck in or out of your home. Fire, EMS, and police response times are heavily impacted by flooded streets. Just imagine needing to evacuate with your family, but the only road out is underwater. That's not a lifestyle that everyone is prepared to live with. Lifestyle and daily prep. Living in a flood zone changes your routine. You don't park your car under the house before a storm. Just a few years ago, there was a hurricane that hit Oak Island directly. A lot of people at the time were buying Teslas, an all-electric vehicle, as most people know. So they were parking them under the houses thinking that that was the place you should do it. However, a lot of them had major fires in that area because there was a reaction between the salt water, the flooding, the battery chargers, something with the car. I don't know exactly, but it caused fires. And so suddenly they weren't dealing just with hurricane force winds and floods. Now they were dealing with a fire. And so God bless those people having to go through all that and have to come and learn the realization that it's not best to park their cars there in that manner. Also, you don't store valuables on the ground floor because in case of flooding, you're going to want to go grab all those things, move them to higher ground, and that's the last thing you want to be worried about if and when you have rising water. Many times water can rise at an incredible rate, and so by the time you even decide that you need to move this stuff, it may be too late. Also, keep an emergency kit ready to go. I don't live on the water. I have a creek on the very back of my property. And because of that, and just because of hurricanes in general, I have part of my garage dedicated to generators, tarps, roof nails in case I ever have to put a tarp on the roof. I have multiple gas cans, water jugs, batteries, fuel pumps. All that just stays in a dedicated area if and when I need to prepare for a storm. So I recommend to people all the time, at the very least, have some of those necessities that just stay in one specific area. Also, if you do have a generator, some of those have batteries connected to them, and those batteries need to be tended or put on a battery tender at least once a year, if not an ongoing maintenancer that allows the battery to stay fresh if and when you need to use it. Also, you don't want to keep any kind of fuel in your generator because that can clog up the carburetors and cause even more issues. Another consideration is that some generators take propane, and so you want to have propane tanks available for that generator in case you run out of other gas or other alternative types of fuel that the generator also takes. So there's a lot to think about, and there's a lot of considerations when you're looking at moving to a place that not only has hurricanes but also has potential flooding. If you want to think about landscaping, you need to choose plants that can handle salt water or just flooding if you live near the ocean or near a tidal creek. Buying a house in a flood zone area is not just buying a home, it's buying a lifestyle commitment that you're having to make if and when those storms begin to come on shore. Hurricanes and storm surge. Here in coastal North Carolina, hurricanes are part of the deal. Even a Category 1 can push several feet of water inland. Storm surge plus a high tide equals flooding where you'd never expect it. Sometimes it's not the big name storms, it's the no-name tropical system that sits and dumps rain for 48 hours. People who have lived through Florence, Matthew, or Floyd will tell you, water always finds a way. This reminds me, back in the mid to late 90s, we had Hurricane Fran and Bertha. I think I have those names right. But Bertha hit first, I believe, and then it was Fran. And what happened was Bertha didn't bring a lot of damage, if I remember correctly, but it soaked everything.
Hurricane Fran, 29 years ago, made landfall at Cape Fear, North Carolina.
And so the water hadn't even found an opportunity to dry out the land before Fran came along and brought all the wind and the rain. And so suddenly you had trees falling that otherwise may have not fallen in hurricanes in the past because the ground was so saturated that everything began to just give way. So I'm not trying to scare you, I'm just trying to give you very practical advice of things to consider when you're looking at moving to an area that is both hurricane prone and flood prone. Comparisons: flood zone versus non-flood zone. This is where the trade-offs come into sharp focus. A home in Hampstead on the marsh may give you that dreamy water view, but you're going to pay for insurance, maintenance, and stress. Just 10 minutes inland in Holly Ridge or Rocky Point, you can often find newer homes, lower insurance, and higher elevation. Maybe you're looking at Porter's Neck or Landfall, River Bluffs, Brunswick Forest. The closer to the water, the more you pay, not just in dollars, but in potential stress. 5 myths about flood zones. Some people say, I'm not in a flood zone, so I don't need insurance. Absolutely wrong. Flooding happens outside of designated flood zones all the time. If the house is never flooded, it won't. I hear that all the time. But past performance doesn't guarantee future results. Flood insurance covers everything. Nope. There's limits and exclusions, so make sure to talk to your insurance agent. I'll just deal with it when it happens. Not at all. Cleanup costs can be catastrophic. It's not something you want to put to chance. I'll see the water coming. Not always. Groundwater and flash flooding can sneak up very fast. Who actually should live in a flood zone? People who want direct water access and are willing to invest in elevation and insurance. Buyers who see it as a lifestyle choice, not just a property. And those prepared mentally and financially for the what ifs. Because yes, you can live in a flood zone safely, but only if you know the risk and you're willing to plan for them. Let's talk about safer alternatives. The good news, you don't have to sacrifice coastal living entirely. Compass Point, Brunswick Forest, River Bluffs, planned communities designed with elevation and drainage in mind. Leland, Castlehane, Rocky Point, they're still close to Wilmington, but on higher ground. Inland golf communities. Enjoy amenities without the flood risk. You can still get the lifestyle, the pools, the trails, the amenities, without having to lie awake at night every time a storm rolls through. So, should you live in a flood zone? The answer is only if you go in with your eyes wide open. Understand the risks, check the construction, budget for insurance, and plan your lifestyle around water. For some people, the trade-offs are absolutely worth it, and those water views and sunsets are unbeatable. For other people, the stress outweighs the perks. Either way, don't make this decision lightly. And if you're considering a move here in coastal North Carolina, I'm happy to help you sort through the options, flood zone or not, so you can make the right decision for your family. Thanks for watching. I'm Kevin with Living in Wilmington NC. I'll see you next time.